Hey guys, how's it going? I'm back here with another video, and in this video, this is the 12th episode of the series where I teach you guys how to build a full stack application using React, Node, and MySQL. And in the previous video, we did a lot of things. We implemented all the different functionalities that you can see. However, we're going to focus either just in this video, or probably if it ends up taking a little bit more than expected, maybe in the next video I'll also finish this up. But we're going to be working through creating a liking system to our application. So you're able to like any post that you see, and when you like it, it registers that you liked it. So you can't, for example, like it 1,000 times. You can only like a post once. So that's basically where we're going to be focusing. And also each post will contain some sort of identifier to show how many likes that post has. Before we actually get into the implementation, if you guys could leave a like and subscribe if you're not subscribed, I would massively appreciate that, because it would help push my videos to more people. So I would be really grateful for that. So yeah, that's basically it. Let's get into the tutorial. Okay, so in this video we're gonna focus, especially in the beginning, mainly on the backend, because it is a bit complicated to set up such system. However, I'm going to explain everything to you guys. So what we're going to do is we're basically going to create a new model in our application. And this model will be a table, right? A table in our MySQL database, which will be called likes, something like this, likes. So we're just going to say likes.js. Okay, so in order to create this likes model, we're actually going to, first of all, close our server from running, because we don't want the changes to occur immediately as we save, because we're going to be making a lot of changes. And we're going to copy the kind of the code that we wrote for comments, because it's going to be pretty similar. Or for any other model that we've created so far, it's just going to be very similar. The difference is that we're not actually going to have any predetermined columns in our likes table, because if you think of it this way, the only things that we need, the only identifiers that we need to have in our likes table is the ID for the post to which that like corresponds. So like when you like a post, it needs to be the ID for that post, and also the ID for the user who liked it, because we're going to be using that to identify if the user has liked that post before. So to do that, we don't even need to write any predetermined columns. So we can just close this right here. And obviously we're going to change the names of the model to likes, and this to likes as well, and this to likes as well. And the reason why we don't need to predetermine this is because we're actually going to be using associations to do that. Similar to what we do here with posts, you can see that we said that each post has many comments. So we're going to do the same thing for the likes. We're going to say that each post has many likes. And let me see what else. Then we're going to say that each user has many likes as well, because so to do that, I'm actually going to change this to users, and I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to change this to users as well, just so that both the like table has both a user ID and also a post ID. So now that we have this done, let's run our server to see if it's going to work. So you can see it worked everything perfectly. Now there should be some sort of identifier in some sort of table in our MySQL workbench. If I refresh this, you can see we have a likes table, and if we select this, you'll see that this table, okay, doesn't have the ID. So that's kind of interesting. We're gonna figure out why this happened, and I'll be back in a second. Okay guys, so I don't know why that happened. It was nothing. I just dropped the table by right clicking on it and clicking on drop table, and then just refreshed it to see the changes. This might not have even happened to you guys, so let me know if you have any doubts on that. Basically you can see that it's working. Our table for likes only has the ID for each like, the information about when it was created and updated, that already comes with Sequelize. But then most importantly, there's an identifier for the post, an identifier for the user ID, which is amazing. So now that we have that settled, we can start implementing a route that is going to be made just for the liking, right? So I'm just going to create a likes.js, and this is where we're going to implement all the different endpoints related to this. So to do that, I'm just going to copy the kind of the code that we have for which one should I use? Yeah, I'll just use this. I'll just copy this code that we used to create a route. And at the bottom, we have to export the router, just so that we don't have to keep writing code that we've written before. And then we're going to import the likes model so that we're able to make any changes to our likes model. So now that we have settled this, now let's just come here to our index.js, and as we do for every single router, we need to import the router and set it to be used in our application. So I'm going to call this likes router, and then this is going to be likes, and then let's just say /likes. That's our endpoint for our API. This is where we're going to be calling all the API endpoints for liking, and then let's just say likes router. Likes router. Okay, so this is kind of done. What we can do now is we can start implementing the different endpoints that we need, and most importantly, the only endpoint we really need is just an endpoint that will allow us to like a post, right? So let's create that. It's going to be a post 100%. So I'm going to say router.post, and over here we'll just put an empty slash because we don't need to identify anything right now. It's going to take a body, and I'm pretty sure that I wanted to be to go through the validation process to see if you have a valid token. So I'm going to import here at the top the validate token middleware. So I'm going to say require two dots middleware / auth middleware, and we're going to grab the validate token middleware. I'm just going to pass it right here so that we don't allow people who are not logged in to like any posts. So over here, I'll just make this asynchronous and just create a function recres, and that's basically it. So we're going to be grabbing some information from the body. So let's just imagine that when we make this request, we're going to be sending some sort of body through the rec.body. And the information that we're going to get, it's just the user ID and the post ID, right? We need both of them. So we can send them like this. And technically, technically, we don't even, this shouldn't even be that necessary, because when we make this request, the validate token should keep track of your ID, right? So we don't even need to pass the user ID. And that's kind of good, right? Because we already have that done here in the validate token middleware. If you recall, in the middleware, somewhere here, we verified the token, and then we set this variable called rec.user to be equal to the valid token, to be equal to the parsed version of the token. So that means that if you recall what payload we put in the token, it includes the username and the user ID. So technically, if you're liking this, that's part of the rec.user. So we're gonna just grab here the ID by saying const user ID is equal to rec.user.id. I'm pretty sure that I called it ID. Just to be sure, let me come over here. Yeah, I called it ID, as you can see. This is what we're getting from the rec.user, if you don't recall. So this is basically done. We got the user ID, and from the body, let's just pass the post ID, like this. So this is kind of the idea. Now over here, we'll need to be using again the likes model to create an instance into our database and into our table. And the data we're going to pass is just a very simple an object containing post ID. So post ID, which is going to be the post ID that we get from the body, and a user ID, which is going to be the user ID who is trying to like this. So let's see if this should work. This should actually work, but let's see if it will. I'm going to say here that I want to wait for this to happen, and after this is done, we should get a response, right? So res.json, just going to say something like success. And over here, we should actually try to see if this is working. I'm going to open up Insomnia. As you can see, I opened up Insomnia, and I'm going to create a new request here. It's going to be the like a post, like this, and it's going to be a post request, which the body will be JSON. So I'm just going to click create. We're going to copy the same endpoint, just paste it over here. And I'm going to change this. The only endpoint we're using here is the /likes, which is what we created. And for the JSON, we're going to be passing a user or a post ID. Now, actually, this request, all we're passing is a post ID, right? Because we technically don't need to pass a user ID because we already get that from the token. So let's come over here. Something like, I'll just check out a random ID over here. Let's try to like this one over here. This post ID is 5 because that's how we identify it. As you can see over here, this is 5. So I'm gonna pass this over here as 5, and it actually should be a number, right? And for the user ID, since we're doing this in Insomnia, we need to pass it individually. You can see that we need a header for this to work. We need the token to be passed. So technically what I'm going to be doing is, I'm already logged in as PedroTech. I'm just going to copy the token that we have here in our local storage, just so that I can use it as well as part of my request. So it's access token, like this, and we can just pass here the token. So now that we have this done, let's see if this is working. When I click send, it says cannot found post likes. Did I write this wrong? Let's come over here to our index.js. Oh yeah, I called it like. I'm gonna call it likes because I prefer that better. And let's try this again. When I click send, it says success, so it means it kind of went through. But let's see in our database if anything was created. And yeah, it was created. And the user ID is correct. It identified which user it was based on which token we passed. So that's amazing. So this is kind of the foundation to our system. But we need to kind of visualize how this is gonna work. Because right now we can like a post how many times we want. All we have to do is make this request that only just likes it. It makes no check to see if you already like this or not. So to do that, we're gonna have some sort of check that is going to search through that posts that individual post's ID and see if there is any field or any row in that table which has the user ID the same as the user ID who's making this request, and the post ID the same as the post ID that was sent in the body. So that is going to be actually pretty simple, because all we have to do is we have to come inside of our likes. And before we actually create this, we need to check to see if this already exists. So we're going to create a variable over here called found. So basically, this is good. We're going to make a request to our database and try to find if this exact field already exists there. So if we find someone, this is going to be returned as this field. But if we don't find anyone, which means that the user is able to like because they had never liked this before, then what will happen is we'll know that this will be false, so we can just continue and create it. If it doesn't make sense right now, you'll see this will make sense, because the logic is pretty straightforward. All we have to do is we're going to use the same function we used for the comments, which is we're actually going to find just one which has some sort of specific identifier, which is going to be actually the user ID and the post ID. So we're going to paste this over here and say find one. And then we're going to say that we want to find a user which has a post ID equal to the post ID that we're passing, and who also has a user ID equal to the user ID we're passing. So we're just trying to find to see if this exact field that we're trying to create already exists, because if it does, we don't want to like something twice. So this happens to be a great way of doing this, because now whenever we want to create, we just ask, okay, if not found, then this means that this user is able to like this post because they never liked it before. So we just make the request. But if they haven't liked it before, then what I want to do is be able to unlike that post, which is actually pretty simple, because now we just need to destroy something. We similar to what we did with the comments, where we're able to delete a comment over here. We just need to pass this function in Sequelize called destroy, which basically allows you to delete some sort of row. So we're just deleting the like that the person made before, meaning that they are kind of like not liking anymore. So this is kind of the idea, right? So we're just gonna destroy where we have the same fields as before. So I'm just gonna say something like this. And now this is the flow of this endpoint. We're just grabbing the post ID from the body, we're grabbing the user ID from the middleware, so from the token. Then we're going to check to see if the user already liked this post before. So if in the likes table there's any row which includes the post ID and the user ID the same as the ones trying to make this request. If they didn't find anything, meaning the user is able to like this post, then add this to our likes table. If not, destroy that from our likes table because the user is unliking this. So this is kind of the idea. You can see that right now we've liked this post before, so it is on our table. Let's try to like it again. You'll see that technically the request never ends because I think we forgot to, did we forget to? No, actually didn't. Let me see if something happened in our database. It should have removed it, which it didn't. So I'm gonna actually check to see what happened, and I'll be back in a second. Oh guys, so this is actually a really dumb mistake. I just copied the comments. So it's saying comments, but it should be likes. And by the way, this should actually be saying something like likes or unlikes. So what I'm gonna do is, if we go through everything, it means that, actually I'll just copy this over here. And if we don't find anything, we actually like the post. So I'll say like the post. If we didn't pass through this, then it means we are unliking a post. So I'm gonna say unliked a post, just so we can have some sort of identifier. So I'm gonna like this again, and you'll see it said unlike the post. If we go to our data, our table, you'll see it was removed. But if we try to like this again, it will say like the post, because it isn't in our database anymore, and you'll see it will be here. But if we try again, it will say unlike the post. So you guys got the idea. This is how you actually like and dislike something. No, not dislike, because I didn't want to implement dislike in this, because like who would want to dislike any of these posts? I'm just adding the functionality of being able to like something or unlike it. So now that we have this done, let's try to implement it in the front end, right? We want to have a beautiful button that will be like a like button, and when you click on it, it will show the like, and also we want to see how many likes each post has, right? So let's do that now. Okay, so to make this work in our front end, what we have to do is we need to come here to our React part of our application. So I'm just going to close this. We're not going to be working with anything related to the API for now, and we need to think about it this way. My thought of this is I want to be able to like in the main page. So like when you show a post like this, there will be a like button for each post, and you will be able to like. We can implement that too when you click on a post to have it over here. But for now, let's just focus on doing this in the main page. And the reason why this is important is because those are different components in React. So we have to have an idea of where we're going to deal with this so that we are able to make this correctly. So if we're going to do this in the home page, you can open up here the home component, and you can see that where we show the posts, we just basically show a list of each post, and that's basically it. This is what we're doing. But one thing that is important is when you map through each element in the list of posts, you get this thing called value, and inside of this you can grab many things like the ID for the post, the title, the post text, and the username. And the reason why this is important is because we can access the ID of the post, which is one of the parameters we have to pass. Actually, the only parameter we have to pass when we call the like endpoint, right? Because we only need to pass a post ID. So this means that what we can do is we can just create some sort of, some sort of button. And I'm going to do this in the footer. If you recall, each post, there's a footer, and this is this part over here. And I'm just going to add a button over here, which for now, I'm not going to add any icons. I'm just going to say like. And then over here, we can pass some sort of on-click property that is going to call a function. And this function, when we call it, it's basically going to account for the ID that for each post individually. So let's create a function up here, which is going to be something like a post. I hate this name, but it's fine. And it's going to take a post ID as an argument. So I'm going to come over here and say it takes an post ID. And here we're going to write all the logic for it, including the API request. But now over here on the onClick, we can just call this function like this by saying like a post, and pass as an argument the ID for each post individually. So we can just say value.id. And now each different post will have a different instance of this function, which will have a different instance of the ID passing as an argument to the function. So this is kind of the idea. And over here, we can make the request to our endpoint. Let's take a look at our endpoint. I'm just going to open this up just so we can kind of understand it better. We only need to pass the post ID. But the thing is, we also need to pass the token as part of our headers. We need to account for that. So passing the post ID is going to be pretty simple. We're just going to say axios.post because this is a post request. Then we have to pass the same endpoint over here and just paste it over here. Instead of being /posts, it's going to be /likes. And over here, we need to pass two things. First of all is the body, and the body is just an object containing a post ID, like this. And if you recall, we called it post ID with a capital letter, capital P, so we have to write it exactly the same. So we're going to pass post ID like this, and pass the post ID for each post individually as the value. But then, we also need to put past the configuration information, which includes the header. So let's just open an object over here, then just write headers, and open another object, and then for the headers we're gonna have one piece of information, which is the access token, which is something we've been doing so far, and the access token will be the local storage. We'll just get the item from the local storage, which is the access token. We've done this a couple times. We're basically just passing the token as part of our header so that we can validate in the backend. So when this is done, we can close this and just since this is a promise, we just get the request. And for now, what we can do is we can just alert a message saying you liked the post, something like this. Or actually, let's not alert this. Let's get the data. If we recall, what we're doing here is we're sending back you like the post if we actually like the post, and unlike the post if we didn't. So let's just get this message so we know it's actually working. We get it by basically grabbing the response from the .then function, and then we can just say we want to alert the message, which is just response.data, and that should be it. So now let's come here and let's refresh. You can see we have a button, and obviously it doesn't matter. It looks horrible, but it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. What we want to do is we want to be able to like it. So I'm going to click on this button over here, and it says object, but I think it worked. If we come to our database and we refresh this, it didn't work. Amazing. So let's see what happened. Okay guys, so one thing that I think might be happening is the fact that when we click on the button, it brings us to this page over here. I don't know if this is part of the issue, but it is an issue overall, because we want to be able to click on this and not move towards it. And the reason why this is happening is because we set the on click to change our to redirect us for whenever you click on any post. So we're going to copy this on click functionality, and we're going to change that to only happen when you click the body of the post. So basically this will now change. If we click over here, nothing happens. If we click over here, nothing happens. But if we click in the middle, it will redirect us. But it still probably isn't working. If I click on the like button, it still doesn't work. If we check like the inspect element, we go to our console, you'll see nothing is consoled. In our network request, if we click on the button, I don't even know if the request is done. Actually it is, but and it says okay. Let me see where the response. It says, oh, it says error, user not logged in. But I am logged in. This is interesting. Let me log out and log in again, just to see what's happening. PedroTech, and then password 123, and let me try to like. Okay guys, so I just figured out the mistake. It is dumb. I don't know if you guys realized it earlier. I wrote access wrong over here. It has to have another S. So when I save this, when I come over here and refresh my page, and I like a post like this one, it should say you like the post. If I try to like it again, it should say you unlike the post. So this is kind of the idea, and I really like this functionality. Now we're able to like a post individually. But one thing that is important is to account that we want to be able to see how many likes a post has, right? And for now, let's just display it right next to the button. And the way we can do this is actually by creating another endpoint in our server. I know I just said that we weren't going to be dealing with the API anymore. I just completely forgot that we had to do this. But we're going to come over here. So how are we going to make this work? There's many ways we can do this, and one way that might be pretty intuitive is just come here to the likes page and I don't know, make a request and count how many rows in the likes table contains a post ID equal to some sort of post, and then that will be the amount of likes that that post has. However, if you think about it, that won't make a lot of sense, because then we would have to make a request for each post individually, and that would just be like, we would make a lot of requests. That's not how you do it efficiently. And especially because if you think about it, Instagram, for example, how do they record their data, right? They're not making a request every time you scroll down and see another post. What we're going to be using is a bit different. We're going to be joining two tables. We're going to be joining the post table and the likes table. And the only reason why we can do this is because we associated both tables. So the reason for that is because instead of doing anything in the likes page, the likes route, we're going to come to the post route, which is this one over here. And here where we basically just request for a list of all the posts, what we're getting back is basically just the data from the posts, right? We're just getting this information that we set before. However, each post has an amount of likes, right, associated to it. So what we can do is we can join both tables, this and the likes table, and individually do that based on the ID that we have. So the reason why this will be great is because now we are going to be able to contain for each post individually. When we make this request, that we're going to make it anyway, it will return back a list of all the posts, and each post inside of it will contain an array of likes associated to it. So we just need to get the length of that array. So that's kind of amazing that you can do this to make it more efficient instead of just making a request whenever you see another post. So to do that, all we have to do is we just have to open this over here and say that we want to include another model in this request. And the model we're going to be using is the likes model. So as you can see, I imported this from the models together with the post. So we'll just include this over here. And this should be it for saying that we want to join both tables. So what will happen is we'll come over here. And if we refresh our page, actually, I'll refresh my page. And now you'll see that if I inspect element and I go to my network, it actually didn't record, so I'll refresh again. You'll see that posts is a request that we make every time we refresh the page. If I come over here, it now includes some sort of identifier over here. As you can see, it says likes inside of the request. So every single post will have likes. Most of them don't have any because we didn't like any post. But you can see that this one over here has a like, right? Yeah, this one over here, which is the first one, has a like array because we like this one. So that's kind of the idea. So now that we have this done, what we can do is in our list of posts, we now have access to that likes array. So all we have to do is we come over here and we just display that information. So I'll just say I want to display a label or an H1 or something like that. I'll write a label, and inside of here we'll say value dot likes. This is the array, so we just want to grab the length of that, so dot length, and this should display a number containing the amount of likes. And you can see this is the post. Each one has 0, but the first one has 1. If I unlike this, I unlike the post. If I refresh it, it should be 0. If I like this post, it should be 1, as you can see. If I'm actually going to like this one as well, and I'm going to log out from my account, and I'm going to log in with Michael Scott, just so you guys can see that it will become 2 if we log in, right? So now I'm Michael Scott. I haven't liked this post before. Only PedroTech liked it. If I click on it, it will say I like the post, and if I refresh it, it will show 2 likes. So it's definitely working. I'm really happy that we're able to make this work because this is a really important. Honestly, making a liking system is one of the things that taught me the most, especially in the beginning when I was learning full stack development. So I just think I'm just really happy that I was able to integrate this in this series. Now, obviously, we can make some changes. For example, in the sense that it's not updating automatically, and you can see that our button over here says like. Even though we might want to unlike the post. So that's something that we might want to do. But this functionality over here is less important than being able to update the liking automatically. So if I like this post, I need to refresh the page to see the changes, right? So how do we make that work? So it's pretty similar to what we did before, because we've already altered information, right? If you recall, we already altered information after making a request. So what we can do is when you like a post, and to do that, we can just come here to the like post, like a post function, and we're gonna write a bit of logic. This might seem a bit complicated because it kind of is like working with hooks and states in React when you want to manipulate different sort of data. It's a bit complicated, but this specifically it's pretty intuitive when you take your time to really look at it and understand what's happening. What we're going to be doing is we need to update an object inside of a list, which is a state. So basically we're setting our list of posts to be equal to list of posts, and we're going to map through each one of those elements. And why are we using the map function? Because the map function allows us to make some changes to individual elements in a list
without making changes to all of them. So what we're doing is we're grabbing the list, we're modifying it, and then we're setting the state for the list to be equal to the modified list. And the updates should re-render on our page and should actually appear in our page. So instead of here, the logic is also a bit weird because we only want to change the amount of likes for a specific post, right? So what post do we want to change? We want to change only if the post.id, and this obviously is each individual post. So we're going to ask, okay, is the post ID equal to the post ID that we got from this function, which is the one we're trying to change, the one we get over here? If it is, then we want to do something. Else, we just want to return the post that already exists. So we're not modifying the posts that are not the ones we want to modify. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. But inside of here, if it is the post we want to modify, we have to return some sort of changes. And the changes we're going to make is a bit weird, but if you recall in the last episode, we basically worked with destructuring an object. For example, I want to keep everything in the post the same, but I want to change the likes field in the or the likes key in this object. So what I do is I just say that I want to keep everything in the post the same, like this, but at the end I want to change the likes to whatever I want to change it to, right? So how do we make this work is we want to change the likes to be equal to the same array, which is the likes array containing all the likes that happened, plus an item. And we don't care about that item. We just want to have one more item so that when we call likes.length, it will include that the correct length. So what we do is we just grab the likes array. So we say post.likes, and we just destructure this as well. Just to say that we want to add one more item to this array, and this item can be literally anything because we don't care what exists inside of the likes array. We're not accessing any item inside of it. All we're doing is we're just grabbing the length. So this means that I can literally just add a 0 to the array that it doesn't really matter. So basically the logic here is, if it's too complicated, it's basically we're grabbing, if the post ID is equal to the post ID, so we're trying to modify the exact post that we want to like, we basically set the post object to be exactly the same as it was before, but we're modifying the likes field. And in the likes field, we're basically keeping the same array but adding a 0 at the end. So we're just adding another element so that when we call likes.length, it will now show another, it will increase that number by 1. So if we check here in our project, if I like this post, it should say like the post, and it should increase this. Now there's an issue because right now I already like this post. If I click again, it should unlike the post, but this is increasing as well. So we need to account for that, because obviously this is 2, or 1 actually. If we refresh, it's 1 because I unlike the post. So we need to account for whether we're liking or not liking. You know what I mean, right? So to do that, it's actually pretty simple. We're now not going to alert the response.data anymore. We're just going to grab we're going to kind of set the data. So I'm going to close this. I'm just going to open the likes, and we need to account for what happened. So let's just, instead of saying like the post, let's pass an object containing one field, which is going to be liked. And it's kind of a question if it is true or false. So if we like the post, we want to set it equal to true. And if we didn't, we want to set it equal to false. Because this is how we're going to know in the front end if we're actually unliking or liking a post. So now over here, when we say, we can just grab this information through the response.data. So for example, over here, if we want to, we can just say if response.data.liked is equal to true, then we're currently liking this post. So this logic should stay the same. We're adding something to the array. But if it's not, if it's equal to false, then we want to modify it as well by deleting one element in this array. So it's kind of weird, but this is what we have to do. We can do it in many different ways. We can just filter through this likes array and just remove one item. But honestly, we don't care that much about what likes exist in this array. We just care about the length of it. So what we can do is we can just remove or pop the last item. And to do that, it's actually pretty simple. We just come over here and say something like, I'm just gonna grab a value over here like array equal to post.like. So we're just grabbing the likes from this post, and then we're gonna pop this value. So I'm gonna say array dot pop, and pop is just a function in JavaScript which removes the last element. So now we're just an array with one less element. So over here we can just pass the likes array. I'm just gonna add an s as the last value, and it should have one less element. So let's try to see if this works. Let's come over here. I'm gonna refresh the page. When I click this, it should like. When I click this, now it should unlike. As you can see, it's working perfectly. The logic makes sense. If you have any doubts about this logic, let me know, because it is quite confusing. Just think about it this way. We're just over here, we're asking if we're supposed to like it or not. If we're supposed, we add an element to the likes array. If we're supposed to unlike a post, we just copy the array, the likes array that currently exists, remove the last item, and then returns the modified version, which is the array with one less item. So that's kind of the idea. And yeah, that's basically it. One last thing that I have to do, but I don't think I'll do it in video, or at least I'll just do it in the beginning of the next episode, because this episode is already huge. It's basically adding the icon for liking a post over here, because currently it's just a button. I think that's important, despite it being just UI. However, if you want to see how that works, wait out for the next video. If you want to check out the code is definitely in the description, with everything that I've done so far in this series. You just change the branches in the GitHub repo, and it will show you each episode with the code that I wrote for each episode. So yeah, that's basically it. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and comment down below what you want to see next. Subscribe, because I'm posting 3 times a week, and I would massively appreciate if you guys could support the channel, help us grow, because we're almost reaching 10K, and I can't even believe that I'm saying that. But yeah, that's basically it. I really hope you guys enjoyed it, and I see you guys next time.